Hey everybody, ABC 10 meteorologist Brenden Mincheff. It is the weekend. Time for another drought update. Really, the map has not changed. Looks as it did last week, and that's because things haven't changed. And that's been the case for a few weeks now. But 17% of the state in that darkest red, the exceptional drought category. Hopefully we can start breaking that soon. Northern California, about split even between severe drought and that extreme drought category. Here's some good news, though. As we look at the 8 to 14-day climate outlook from the Climate Prediction Center, we actually have some green on this map. Looks like maybe we're going to be leaning a little bit wetter. This is for the period October 22nd to October 28th, so really the end of the month. And if we look at, this is precipitable water, but it's really just looking at where is that moisture in the Pacific. It helps us to find atmospheric rivers. You can see a bit of moisture. There's a nice little plume here, but it's going to stay off the west coast of the United States, really not going to impact us at all. This is Monday, really through Tuesday as well. Another plume starts to make its way through. This one starts to dissipate, though. So even though we have a system coming through, it looks like we'll have a system coming through at least right around Saturday, October 22nd, so next Saturday. It doesn't look like it's going to have a strong Pacific connection with it, maybe a little bit of help with some Pacific moisture, but for the most part, moisture looks like it'll be somewhat difficult to come by. So even though there will be some rain chances, chances for some showers potentially across Northern California, for the most part, it does look like the system is setting up to be one that is not going to be conducive to widespread rainfall across Northern California. Something we'll keep an eye on, though. Let's wind it out a little further. So now we're talking about Tuesday, October 25th through about Wednesday the 26th, maybe Thursday the 27th. Another plume of moisture. This one may be a little bit stronger. Might try to work its way into Northern California. But this is still so far away. We're talking 10, 11, 12 days from now. So we can't say for certain. But based on the climate outlook from the Climate Prediction Center, combined with looking at the Pacific and the precipitable water contours and the data, it actually looks like maybe we have 2, maybe 3 chances of some rain before we end this month of October. Now, we talked about this a little while ago, the NMME models and the Euro models. These are both ensembles, so there's taking a lot of different models and kind of smashing it all together, and it comes up with an equation. It comes up with these maps. They're 2 different sets of data, but they're calculating the same thing. It's like it's solving for 4. How do you get to 4? Maybe this one is saying it's 2 plus 2, and this one is saying it's 3 plus 1. They come up with 4. They get to the same place in the end. It's just how you're calculating it. And so it does give us slightly different outlooks, if you will. So this is for November, December, January. And if we look at the NMME, you see some green over Northern California, some green, darker green over the Pacific Northwest, and a little bit of that yellow-orangey color once we get down towards Southern California. Very similar story with the Euro, the European ensembles, maybe a little bit more moisture over the Northern California region, and maybe a little bit more over Southern California too. We don't see any color, which is just white. That means it'll be right near average, but it does now look like maybe November, December, January could be slightly above average in terms of rainfall, at least according to these 2 data sets. We are headed for another La Nina winter, and so La Nina means it's a toss-up, right? There's no guarantee it'll be wetter, no guarantee it'll be drier. It's kind of a 50-50 toss-up anytime we get a La Nina. But these 2 maps are giving me a little bit of hope, right? It should all give us a little bit of hope that maybe we'll get some rain at some point over the next 3 months, maybe a little bit wetter than average by the time we get to the new year. If we look at the ENSO plumes now, so these are a bunch of different models calculating whether we're going to be in La Nina, whether we'll be neutral, or going towards El Nino. Well, you can see we are right about here, working through the October, November, December area. And so as we go in towards these winter months, we're still going to be in that La Nina. There's no change there. But once we start working in towards next year, so now we're talking December, January, February, March, April, May. Now we see a lot of those plumes starting to shift up to the north a little bit. And so when they get above this line here, that ½ degree line, that means that we're starting to talk about more of an ENSO neutral. So not quite La Nina, not quite El Nino. And then continuing out, maybe we are in for next winter, not this coming one, but winter 23-24. Maybe we're in for an El Nino winter, maybe a weak El Nino. It's something to watch, right? It's still a ways out, hard to say for sure, but it does look like we're starting to see that trend in the models that we're maybe shifting out of this La Nina. And of course, an El Nino winter typically means we see more rain here in Northern California. All right, so what does this all mean? Well, I'm tying this back to reservoirs because we always get a lot of questions and comments on our YouTube videos. We do read the comments. I personally read your comments, so if you have anything you want to say, any suggestions for drought updates in the future, let me know. But one of the things that y'all say a lot is, well, why don't we just keep more water in the reservoirs? Well, there's a few reasons, and we talked to a couple of experts, and we'll get to them in a second. But I mean, if we look at the water, water levels in the reservoirs, it's not great. They're quite a bit below where they should be. I mean, Folsom at 33% capacity, same in Oroville, Shasta at 32% capacity. So not great. Rain helps to fill these up, but even when we get a lot of rain, right, we still need to let some of that water out. It's not necessarily just because we need to give Southern California water or we need to give the fish water, right? It's a combination of things. We don't want to let these get too full, because if we get a big storm that comes and dumps, 12 inches of water in certain areas and really fills up these reservoirs, well, that's a problem, because all that runoff drains into those reservoirs, drains into those lakes, and if we don't let some of that water out, they can overfill and flood. And it's not like just flipping a switch or pulling the drain out of the bathtub, right, and letting all that water out. It takes time for water to work its way downstream. So we have to plan in advance before the coming winter to even, to say, hey, looks like we might get a lot of rain this year. Maybe we won't get quite so much rain, so maybe we won't let quite so much water out. But we need to keep a little bit of a buffer in there because, again, we don't want things to flood. Let's get to the experts. Here's what they had to say. I know this is a very frequently asked question, so I hope this answers that question for a lot of you guys watching at home.
Reservoir levels, things like that, we all work together to make sure that there's a really good ebb and flow balance between making sure enough water is going downstream, but we also have a lot of space in the reservoirs to account for that. It is a very dynamic and well-coordinated effort that extends all the way up to the Oregon border and everything on the on the west side of the Sierras. Well, there's a couple reasons too. I mean, we got to keep water temperatures cold enough so that the salmon and other wildlife can exist within the waterways. So that takes a certain amount of water. We also have agriculture needs, and we need to keep the flows going. And then we also need, like you said, to have space, ample space for any sort of winter storms that may be coming in.
We like to actually keep our surface water reservoirs kind of empty at that time of year in order to accommodate storm events and stuff like that. So when there is plentiful surface water, we should be utilizing that. And we should allow our groundwater basins to recharge when that's happening. And then when there isn't much surface water available, we should be utilizing groundwater. What's really critical for us to focus on is adapting to the new normal of longer, more severe droughts coupled with increased flooding that we know will come with climate change.